HACC to me was a godsend.
It was the most fun.
It's an experience that I will never forget.
HACC's been very good to me.
HACC is one of the best kept secrets.
I came to HACC for a number of reasons.
HACC had helped me out so much.
I ended up being at HACC for 43 years.
42 years.
It's just been really gratifying.
It was very exciting.
I grew up here. I never worked anyplace else. But I don't think there's a better place to grow up.
Clyde Blocker came up from Texas and considered a leader in community college movements.
You can't ignore the stamp that Clyde Blocker put on the college, who was the first president.
We were delighted to hear that HACC was going to be the first community college and it would be ready for school in the fall of '64. HACC was on 2nd Street and there were two buildings, Duncan Hall and Hunter Hall. And then our second year when Hershey Junior College merged with HACC, obviously our enrollment grew quicker.
It was about 3,000 students. It had grown from about 500 in '64 to 3,000.
The core of the faculty had come from the old Hershey Junior College.
Clyde Blocker was a phenomenal administrator.
He was brought here by the board because he was a nationally known administrator and developer of community colleges.
Everybody knew everybody, and you got to know a lot of the students.
Dean Maurice Overholt met me outside the Student Union building in 2nd Street, the old campus. And he said, "Joe, how are you doing?" I said, "How do you know?" I was shocked he even knew my name.
Maury had been a Navy, I don't know, captain or commander. And you can imagine this crusty career Navy guy coming in here as a business officer.
I remember when we were having trouble in the early years transferring our students to different schools around here, Maury Overall, because he was active in the National Registrars Group, he got letters from Harvard, from Yale, all these big schools saying they would transfer our students. We're glad to get them. So I won't mention the university, but it's a state university. And Clyde invited the dean over because he was giving us a hard time. And the dean said, gave his lecture about, well, we've got to maintain quality and all that. And Clyde's quietly looking through the catalog. And he says, well, I understand that, but I notice here, so-and-so got a master's degree from your institution. He's teaching here. Here's somebody else, he's teaching here. She's teaching here. Now, are you saying they aren't bright enough or whatever? And well, you know.
I was here with Governor Ray Schaefer to put a spade in the ground to dig and have the groundbreaking for this campus. As the student government president, we were here at Wildwood Park/dump.
It was the site of a former dump and of a zoo.
I always told my students I came with the buildings because the fall of '67 was the first that this Wildwood campus was open. The college had actually started in '64 down on 2nd Street, which is now the University Center. There was what we called then North Hall, which is now called Blocker Hall. The library was just barely finished, and the student center was not quite finished, and that's all that was here. Most classrooms simply wouldn't hold more than 30 people, and that was a deliberate decision so that we could focus a lot more on the students. The state proposed a highway to extend Cameron Street up to Dauphin. But the original drawing would put the highway 50 feet off our student parking lot on the east side of the campus. Furthermore, the right-of-way of the highway would go straight through Wildwood Park and Wildwood Lake. Some of us thought that was a terrible idea, and so we went to federal court. And finally, the judge in the case said, I can't stop the highway, but I can issue an injunction to stop it indefinitely until the state issues an environmental impact statement. At which point, the governor said, to heck with it, essentially. Move the road.
Agnes hurricane.
Agnes really hit this campus hard, not from the Susquehanna, as most people know, but Paxton Creek, which runs towards the back end of this campus, flooded.
We had about 18 inches of rain on the campus in about a 2-day period. It just wreaked havoc
This happened in around June the 18th to the 23rd.
We didn't know for several weeks when HACC would reopen.
This college, the staff, the faculty, students rallied,
We all came and volunteered, everybody.
cleaning out, taking rugs out. We found carp in what was known as East Hall back then.
We had just received all the fall order of books about a week before the hurricane hit, and we had to throw out everything.
You can't ignore the stamp that Clyde Blocker put on the college, who was the first president.
It would have been around 72. That August is when Clyde had his stroke, and that was when they hired Jim Manila.
He only lasted for a year and a half.
So when Jim Manila left, the board decided not to do a search.
The board at that point wanted someone who was very familiar with the college, knew the faculty, knew the student body.
And they asked me to do it, and I said, I'll do it, but I'll do it for only so long. Went back on faculty in 82, retired in 96.
In 1982-83, President Ken Woodbury came in, and the board definitely hired him to move the campus forward and to make some big changes, and he did.
Ken was what we needed then, because I wasn't a builder.
He really decided to make the campus look more like an arboretum.
Ken knew how to go up on the hill and argue and smile and get his way. We needed that.
Ken was very proactive, and one of the things was to open up other campuses. We brought Lebanon into the picture, Lancaster in the picture, well, actually, and Gettysburg to some extent.
I was at the right place at the right time, I think,
Dr. Woodbury asked him to develop the campuses.
and he sent me a packing from the Wildwood campus, and he said, find out if we've got support. I was looking for our first location, and I ran into the real estate sign at Burrell Business Park.
When I first started at HACC, it was in at Burrell Industries. It was a small section of Burrell Industries.
When we started, we had probably 10,000 square feet. It wasn't much. Lancaster campus, which was a center, the previous year opened up in the fall of '89. We were there for 12 years.
We opened the main building here on this campus in 2001.
But we grew so fast, so we actually opened what's now called the East Building in fall of 2004.
Now they have two, 3-floor buildings.
I had a role to start with Ken Woodbury of looking at the other communities around us. I got in contact with Frank Dixon and was connected with Frank Dixon and Ken Woodbury at the time.
The relationship between myself and HACC started with a phone call from a fellow by the name of Dr. Kenneth Woodbury to me, who was interested in locating a branch campus in Lebanon. At that time, I was the owner of a vacant but very large department store in downtown Lebanon. We pretty soon reached an agreement on converting the department store to branch campus of HACC. We opened in September of '89, but it didn't last long. In November of '89, we had the fire, and it was unanimously decided at that point that we were going to rebuild, and we were going to rebuild on this site, not another suburban location. An amazing 14 months from tearing this building down, buying adjoining properties, and rebuilding this magnificent facility and opening for classes in just 14 months from the day of the fire. Miracle.
Same way with Gettysburg, we were fortunate to have the location on the plaza and in Adams County where the Weiss Market is located.
We had been offering classes in Gettysburg starting in 1989, but at that time we were still very, very young. Most of our classes were still being offered in the school buildings within the Gettysburg School District. We were in a small building, a fire company, where we had 2 classrooms, but everything else was in the schools. And in 1999, the campus earned its designation as an official HACC campus from PDE. We offer today in Gettysburg 28 full programs. We have just over 2,000 students.
And the other thing, to Mike's credit, to Mike Klunk's credit, he began, of course, the York Center.
And then in York, we started that again in a small office facility on Roosevelt Avenue. And then we're able to develop where it is now off of Roosevelt Avenue in York.
Gene Truthart was hired as the campus director.
I joined the college in 2003, and I was the first person that was hired for what was then called the York Initiative. We had 225 students that first semester, and by the time we moved to our current location, we were just under 1,000 students. We started offering classes in the evenings at area high schools. We did evening and Saturday classes, and now we have 3 academic buildings, we have 5 total buildings, we have plenty of parking.
Dr. Fifield was only there 3 to 4 years and left in '97. I guess it was the fall of 1997 when Dr. Berry came in.
And when I first came on board, it was Dr. Berry who was the president.
Dr. Berry and I did start at the same time, and when I think of her presidency, what I remember the most is the expansion of our campuses and that focus on one college concept.
She really tried to develop the one college concept.
She was here during that tremendous growth and was really committing resources, especially to the York campus.
She strived to bring all the campuses together.
And then 3 years ago, Dr. Ski came to the college, and he has such energy. And in the very beginning, he said he wanted to meet with 90 community leaders in 90 days. And he did that.
You know, in the 3 years that Dr. Ski has been here, I would say he is as well known in Adams County as I am, who have spent 15 years working at that campus.
This institution has given me everything that I have in life.
Going to HACC really set me up for the future.
When I think about my 15 years and why I'm still here, it really is because of the people who work here. They want to change the lives and destinies of our students.
It's very important to me to have a meaning in my life and to be of significance to other people.
Helping students to be successful.
I've always loved to teach.
We wanted to teach. We wanted the interaction with the students. We wanted to be in the classroom.
I wanted to be in the classroom.
It's important to me to see lights come on as they understand new concepts.
We have a lot of experts at HACC, but what really sets us apart and students feel this difference is how committed they are to the students.
HACC is not brick and mortars. We wouldn't be here today if it was just brick and mortars.
The dedication of the professors that we had.
They were passionate about what they taught. They had a genuine concern for the students.
I had great teachers.
The professors are really dedicated to the students. The student focus is amazing.
There were wonderful, wonderful people that I'll never forget.
I just wish I would have told Professor Herb, Professor Moss, Dean Overholt, how much he meant to me. So, and that's my regret. I didn't do that.
I wanted to make a difference in people's lives.
People don't care how much you know until they know that you care. The professors here were not on an ego trip to try to prove how much they knew of the subject matter. That was not why they were here. They were here because they cared.